It's March the 3rd, 2022. Welcome everybody, hope you're doing well in these difficult times. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclear proctologist.org. We are here to go to war. Every day at the same time, never early, never late. Give or take a few seconds, but... So we got reports of nuclear power plant on fire in Ukraine. This is tweeted out by the mayor of the town. This is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe that they're talking about. We got a poll tonight. Should nuclear power plants be labeled as terrorists? I don't know. I think they should be labeled as terrorists. I don't know about you. And it looks like you do too. 18 votes, 100% of the people. So I was out in the woods today. We're going to cover that at the end of the show. But a little sneak preview. Yeah, that was just a few hours ago. Fantastic. Once the aliens left, it went silent again, of course, but... Nuclear power plant on fire in Ukraine. According to the mayor, this is the biggest plant in Europe. This is breaking news. We don't know. These are big sites. Hopefully, for goodness sakes, nothing serious is going on. It's hard to rule it out because it's a war zone within a couple of kilometers. If you take out the external power, the plant is forced to use generators that apparently don't always work and have terrible, because they never get used, right? And so all the seals and everything dry up in them, and when you go to use them, they're very difficult to get started. You have to... Apparently, a lot of them fail. But they only usually got about 9 hours worth of fuel stored on site. Now, Russia's not stupid, per se. Yeah, they got Mayak, and that's kind of stupid, what they got done up in Mayak, the fuel reprocessing, a.k.a. genocide facility. There's a major war going all around the nuclear power plant, nuclear parts of the nuclear power plant. I don't know, because these first headlines I'm showing you are in the last 45 minutes. There's around 30 of them. Russia-Ukraine forces battle for control of crucial nuclear power plant. Crucial. Scumbag media's out there. How Ukraine's military has resisted Russia so far? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of operatives from different countries on the ground there. We got country after country after country, Canada included, shipping anti-aircraft missiles, shoulder launch missiles, anti-tank, Scuds, who knows what they're... But we got so many countries that are shipping, Denmark, Norway, Spain. There's many, many countries, a lot of NATO countries, and United Nations countries are shipping devastating equalizers. It's the coward way of going to war. Instead of going to war themselves, and they're piling up at the borders, but instead of actually physically going to war and declaring war, they're giving the same weapons they would be using to people on the ground, the folder for the cannons. Trust me, if Russia wants to unleash Armageddon, Russia's going to unleash Armageddon. This is a huge military-industrial complex known as Russia. Go look at Syria, videos or pictures of Syria. Penticton, British Columbia, residents to host another rally in support of Ukraine. Canada, I think the government of Canada wants every community in Canada to throw a sympathy party for Ukraine. That would make the government happy. They've never been happy in the entire legacy of a government. That would make them actually happy. Volunteers crossed the border into Ukraine to fight Russian forces. Totally looks like a volunteer to me. How educators and a psychologist in Edmonton, the scumbag media, are talking to kids about Ukraine. Don't let psychologists near your kids, for God's sakes. Grow a set. Stop sticking your ass in the air every time they come by and wants to pump you. Which is pretty well all day, every day now, isn't it? This is the festivities in Edmonton. Stop Putin, stop war. A lot of these can't even function normally. Canada eases Ukraine immigration requirements. Of course, just a week and a half ago, you got arrested for protesting anywhere in Canada under martial law because the kooky disaster that is their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, couldn't deal with protesters, enacted martial law across the country. Canada eases Ukraine immigration requirements. And Canada is at the forefront of... they dropped martial law and then they went straight to Ukraine within 14 hours or something. They were giving Ukraine Stinger missiles and everything else. Canada's not supposed to be going to war with people. This is the same as going to war. If Russia nukes Justin Trudeau, nobody's going to blame him, okay? Canada eases Ukraine immigration requirements, strips Russia trading status, and increases military aid to Ukraine. Coward won't declare war, eh? And this is the military aid they're talking about. Shoulder launch, anti-missile, anti-helicopter, anti-aircraft. The defense minister, again, plans to set additional M72 rocket launchers. Everybody should get one of them for Christmas. You'll need them in the near future. Oh, now we're gone into Twilight Zone. South Park mocks Putin's invasion, and South Park is for kids and adults even. South Park is the holy grail. South Park says something. South Park says kill your mothers. They'll kill every mother on this planet. The power of the brainwash and idiot mocks Putin's invasion of Ukraine and suggests he's stuck in the past. They got Kenny, who dies in every episode, on the top there. I can't remember. I know the guy on the end is Carmen, is it? I think. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and I might never, certainly I'd probably never watch it again. But these caricatures are meant to denigrate your children's respect for their parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles in increments over the lifetime of the child, preteens and everything included. Wednesday episode, Back to the Cold War. Back to the Cold War. Nice children cartoons episode, guys. Mocked Russia's President Vladimir Putin for starting an international crisis. Well, it was only an international crisis because the media got everybody tortured. They rolled out the Donald Trump card on Putin. It's the same thing we've seen happen to Trump, where all the media in the world turned on him the minute he showed up. And when he got elected, it was fever for the next 6, 8 years or something. Non-stop. And this is what we're seeing now with Putin. And I mean, Vladimir Putin is getting the Hitler treatment. MP calls on Ottawa to rename street outside the Russian embassy after this pansy Ukrainian president. Really? You're going to name a street in Ottawa that happens to have the Russian embassy on it after the Ukraine prime minister or president? And I'm only saying that because Canada has come up with incredible innovative ways to attack Russia in the last week. Like International Criminal Court, sanctions, can't land a ship, can't fly over the country with airplanes, no money going through Canada or Russia, won't do business, disenfranchisement. I mean, talk about throwing a tantrum. It's not hard to see why their first reaction when they seen protesters in Canada was to invoke martial law. We lost the planet, literally the morons and lapdogs of the World Economic Forum. MP calls on Ottawa to rename a street outside the Russian embassy after Ukraine president. Man, that cracks me up. Just name it Justin Trudeau. That's just as sad. Countries seek UN meeting over shipping dangers. This is madness again. So, UN has a subsidy that I wasn't aware of known as UN shipping. Over 15 countries, which are part of the UN, so they shouldn't call themselves countries. There's 193 militaries is what United Nations is. And they got a UN shipping agency. United Nations got an agency for every facet of every species on this planet. But they haven't got an agency for apathy or good conduct. They're absolute demons. In increments over 70 years now have ruined the planet for every species and humanity. Effort in Edmonton, donate protective gear. You see the military gear? Oh, and medical supplies. Oh yeah, medical supplies. At the Battle Rattle Tactical Supplies, nice name, guys. In Edmonton, demand for protective gear and medical kits is high. People are buying everything from chest protectors to boots to rain gear to ship it to Ukraine. How about a bid-in for Ukraine? Yoko Ono, Vancouver Gallery exhibits a timely tonic. I hate these artsy-wartsy people sometimes. But that's the world they live in, not us, right? So they want to have a sleep-in. Like anybody that got any kind of influence, except for me, of course, is... Well, if I was pro-Ukraine right now, I'd be looking into millions of views. Scumbags, they're both scumbags. Neither one's any better than the other one. Let them fight it out like they normally would. Village Ice Cream donating all ice cream sales to Ukraine this Sunday. There's some... Imagine this was all for Al-Qaeda. The whole world now was ordered about a week ago to turn on Vladimir Putin. Not Russia, but Vladimir Putin. A rush for iodine pills in Europe after not Russia's nuclear threats, but Vladimir Putin's nuclear threat. Gotta have a face to evil, I suppose. Elon Musk, there's a face for evil, warns that the Starlink, his satellite system, which is taken over space, could be targeted in Ukraine amid Russian invasion. Do you really think it's just going to stop at Ukraine? Anybody? The U.S. announced the formation of a task force. They pulled the plug on it, eh? They're going for it. It has all the makings of World War III for sure. Because you see everybody worldwide is encouraged to come out and spit on Vladimir Putin. Media will take your story and put it up there, and you'll be immortalized as one of the many millions of useful idiots that done the work for the crazies. They're actually, they got one senator down in the state going around collecting small arms to send to Ukraine. A gun drive. You heard of a bottle drive? There's that story's coming up. U.S. announced the formation of a task force that will enforce sweeping sanctions against Russia and its billionaire oligarchs. That's everybody just worldwide has got their marching orders, and they're to cut off, isolate Russia every way you can. It's like World War II, where everybody had to give up the tires on their cars and the gasoline in the tanks for the military machine, because no one was able to slow it down. Eventually consumed everything we had until it finally blew itself out. Dallas to consider suspending ties to Russia City amid Ukraine invasion. It's the strangest headlines. MS man organizes humanitarian mission to Ukraine. Military gear. The two crocked rockets right there. Ohio pilot describes experience bringing aid and, ammunition to Ukraine. Biden sinks $10 billion for aid and $22.5 billion for the coronavirus. Why not? Who's going to say no to you, really? South Florida's coming together in support for Ukraine. Quad leaders agree Ukraine experience should not be allowed in Indo-Pacific. Whatever that means. Everyone is effing stunned. Putin blindsided the Kremlin as no one expected a full-scale war. This is where George Bush left off, the never-ending war. According to, the weapons manufacturers have never stopped producing weapons, and there's been no wars lately, so they need a big war to get rid of their inventory. They probably got 5-10 years inventory just kicking around. According to Julia Lofi, a founding partner Washington correspondent for Puck News. That's a nice reputable name, isn't it? Another source said no one expected a full-scale war. This is from the United Kingdom, so might as well take it for a grain of salt. If it's United Kingdom media, actually, if it's any media worldwide, you're kind of screwed. Pretty hard to prepare for the worst. Macron issued a grim warning moment after a Putin phone call. So they're everything they're talking about is directed almost to a prophecy, kind of a fever. Local businesses and bridges light up blue and yellow to support Ukraine worldwide. Ukraine's war late as Amazon CEO pledges to boost Ukraine's cyber security capabilities. Amazon. The scumbag Financial Times. Justice Department announces a task force to go after Russian oligarchs. These are really powerful players. So the whole world is isolating. It's everybody. If you're 99% Eskimo and 1% Russia, you're a scumbag Russian. If you ever even thought about going to Russia, you're a scumbag. Let alone if you went there. You're a traitor if you actually went there anywhere in the last 2,000 years. That's what we're seeing now. It won't be long now before they were calling for public executions of Russians in the streets worldwide at this stage. In an effort to undercut Vladimir Putin and the politically connected elite in Russia. In an effort to undercut Vladimir V. Putin, the Russian oligarch, Roman said he would sell Chelsea's, the Premier League soccer team. That's craziness, isn't it? Everybody from Russia and everything from Russia is now banned forever from the annals of history. It'll be struck from the annals of history. This is scary. Sign up for the Russia-Ukraine war briefing. Every evening we'll send you a summary of the day's biggest news right to your email. We'll brainwash you and your loved ones for 1,000 years. The New York Times. Justice Department announces task force to go after Russian oligarchs. The task force will marshal the resources of various federal agencies to enforce sweeping economic measures that the United States has imposed as Russia continues its unprovoked assault on Ukraine. We're part of an effort by the United States to seize and freeze the assets of those who have violated sanctions. We will leave no stone unturned in our efforts to investigate, arrest, and prosecute those whose criminal acts enabled the Russian government to continue this unjust war. Catastrophic events like 9/11 or the invasion of Ukraine. How about the invasion of Libya, an invasion of Syria, an invasion of Palestine, an invasion of the military-industrial complex into all of those countries? Task Force kleptomaniac capture. West Point is pumping out leaders now that don't even have half a brain in their head. The helium is all the helium that's missing on the planet has gone into their heads. The Biden administration sought to freeze the assets of Russian foreign minister. The foreign minister. First off, Russia has not gotten to war with the United States. I don't know if anybody bothered telling Americans that. Americans have gotten to war against Russia. They're sending lethal weapons to Ukraine. That's the same as going to war. And so they're setting the stage for all the countries that are sending Stinger missiles and shoulder launch, single-use missiles, blah, 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 for retaliation. You can't go complaining if Russia attacks you too, when you went ahead and done that. And I'm only covering probably 10% of what's coming out in the media. Who knows what I've missed at this stage. Some of Russia's elites are reportedly rushing to sell their assets. Other oligarchs with ties to Moscow have hired American lobbyists and white shoe law firms to try to weaken U.S. sanctions laws like the Magnitsky Act. The 2012 measure initially imposed sanctions on some Russian government officials in response to human rights abuses. We should use that against the Canadian and American government too, shouldn't we? Biden is seeking to press Putin on Ukraine without sparking wider wars. If you got a sniper up there, then it's fair game. The steady drumbeat of retaliatory actions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. The steady drumbeat of retaliatory actions against Russia by coward countries that won't get into war themselves, but will ship Stinger missiles and everything else to people that don't know how to use them. No risk whatsoever, see? Outside of that, they're putting it up in the papers, in the news, inviting Russia to, literally mocking a major nuclear superpower that's got a bad attitude on top of that. Not very clever. It's like going in a lion cage and kicking a lion in the nuts while it's sleeping and then running out the gate before he gets you. It just doesn't seem common sense, right? Comes with some U.S. signaling that it doesn't want the crisis to spiral out of control. A little late for that. They're gone crazy. So in the days after Putin announced on national TV, by the way, that Russia's nuclear arsenal was on a special regime of high alert combat duty. That's the keys already turned, just pop. Hit that button. The Americans were postponing Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile test they had planned for the week. Scumbag U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered delay in an effort to demonstrate we have no intentions of engaging in actions that could be misunderstood or misconstrued. The Pentagon degenerate omnicide creature John Kirby said. Similarly, the administration has avoided potentially provocative rhetoric, such as talking about regime change in Russia. Oh, you just went about it through the media instead. And has hesitated at times to confirm details of weapons shipments to Ukraine, like, Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. That didn't show up in the media accidentally. That was the long arm of the Pentagon. They have 29,000 public relation officers in military uniforms at the Pentagon. That's what they do for military careers. They get on the phone and emails and contact media. Say, hey, I didn't like that last story you wrote about the military. We're not going to advertise with you for 2 months. You better smarten up. 1 million refugees have fled Ukraine in a week. And you ain't going back. They have pulled the pin on population control by the looks of it. Well, Fukushima wiped out all the species. And the rest that are there ain't going to survive. And so the population at some point is going to wake up and go, what the frig? And so the despicable coward chicken eggs and $5,000 suits decided they're doing what they're doing the same thing that the Soviet Union done, right? Where they dissolved the country and everybody's pensions included, without thinking about people's pensions. Well, I can't fix it, so we're just going to dissolve the country. Well, don't you think you should have somebody else get a crack at it? No, it's too late. We got to put the country down. What about everybody's pension? Well, that's the way it's go. I got to have a castle. Can't have a castle and them having pensions. Ukraine's volunteer fighters brace for more. These people need bullets in their heads immediately. That's what we do in the old days with the criminals. Just as well to get busy. Blitzkrieg. Ukraine's volunteer fighters brace for more. Volunteer fighters, aka people don't know what they're doing. Ukraine's army has distributed weapons to anyone who wants to defend the country. Deployed thousands of useful idiots called reservists throughout Kyiv. Citizens in jeans and winter coats wearing yellow armbands Crouched behind stacks of tires at useless checkpoints, or peeps on street corners. They are outnumbered, but we will try to get more weapons. Even if none are supplied, we will do it ourselves. We'll kill the enemy and take their weapons. Till Russia drops one of those 155 millimeter uranium rounds from their tanks in downtown Timbuktu with a 900-foot kill ratio. China asks Russia to delay Ukraine war until after the Olympics. How many weapons has Israel shipped down there? I wonder. They haven't heard a friggin' word out of those creatures. China asked Russia to delay Ukraine war until after the Olympics, which he done. 4 days after the Olympics, Vladimir Putin said, everything good. He said, yeah, okay, let's get her on. I gotta go get tea, do some bowling. Florida man blames Putin for why he was speeding during a traffic stop. Hey, if that don't work, use climate change. It always works for me. Russia waged war with Ukraine 4 days after the Olympics ended. Ha ha! Let the Olympics have their day in the genocide China. So this next picture is a few burnt dead bodies. If that offends you, blink twice. 1001, 1002. Okay. Culture is the third front in Ukraine war, says Nadine Dorries. This was really interesting, Nadine. So the UK ministers are meeting international allies later to discuss what further economic sanctions could be taken against Russia over the invasion. The cultural secretary will try to mobilize more support to isolate Moscow at a summit of global sports ministers. Global sports ministers. Literally makes me want to throw up thinking about it. These people. Nadine Dorries said culture was the third front in the Ukrainian war. And in a speech alongside a fellow ministers from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Ms. Trust will say the UK and its allies are reinforcing NATO's eastern flanks. So now they got NATO, now there's NATO. The three Baltic countries are members of the Defensive Military Alliance. There's 30 countries they call the little bully, because United Nations is the big bully, right? It was 193 militaries. NATO is 30 militaries. The Cultural Secretary hosted a virtual summit with sports ministers from 11 countries that are expected to discuss banning teams and individuals representing Russia from international competitions and barring Russia and its ally Belarus from hosting global sporting events. So Russia might as well hook up with North Korea at this stage, which is probably the plan, right? Football stands together. Yay. Being a patriot is now going out and bending the knee and kissing the ring of Ukraine. How to talk to your kids about Russia's attack on Ukraine? People that write stuff like that, I like to give them a shot in the head. Ukraine's vice prime minister Twitter shaming firms to action over invasion. Twitter shaming. So normally if you bully somebody on Twitter, they disable your account and boot you from it. Now it's called Twitter shaming if you do it politically because you're going after Ukraine. Ukraine, okay. Anybody else bullying, cyberbullying? Stop putting That was probably just photoshopped in there by the looks of it. Ukraine's vice prime minister has been calling out big tech companies by name. So the Ukraine prime minister and vice prime ministers and anybody with influential contacts has been reaching out to countries and saying, hey, can you ban Russia from supermarkets and Starbucks shops and Walmarts? And there's a headline company, do you want Ukraine asked the ICPP to ban Russia from the internet. Or ICANN, rather. ICANN was like, you can't do stuff like that because we don't have control over it. That's the beauty of the internet. Well, the military can do it if they wants to, but Ukraine Vice Prime Minister calling out big tech, and it's having an impact. I read off a whole bunch of it last night. Google, Facebook, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Ukraine's governments have asked Google, Netflix, YouTube, Facebook to cut off for Russia. A medical student from Punjab dies of a stroke in Ukraine. 22-year-old student. That sounds like Vladimir Putin for sure. Probably gave him the evil eye. Cookie media, man. Russia-Ukraine war live updates. 3,700 stranded Indians will come home today. Russia-Ukraine conflict could increase COVID transmission, warns the World Scumbag Organization, aka United Nations. Ukraine war spells the end of the Golden Arch peace theory. Hundreds of McDonald outlets in both Russia and Ukraine. The war in Europe may mark the final break in theories about the process of perpetual globalization. There are at least 700 McDonald outlets in Russia and more than 100 in Ukraine. And the idea of a new world order of peace is new. A new world order. Now, I never heard it say that way before, new world order of peace, because that's not what they do. There's no example of a new world order bringing peace. Pieces, but not peace. Here's what George Bush Sr. had to say about who the new world order is.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations.
Again. That's not supposed to be that loud.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
UN is not a peacekeeper. Go ask North Korea. The United Nations' first order was to go flatten North Korea. They burnt every city to the ground with napalm, a terrible inflammatory incendiary gel. The day after the terrorist attacks, again, they're invoking September 11, 2001. So they're putting Ukraine on that same pedestal, which means it's hard to appreciate how far-reaching September 11, 2001 changes were. For instance, in Canada, for electric bikes, you can only get a 500-watt motor because a 1,000-watt motor could be used by terrorists. But you can buy a 1,000-watt motor for furnaces and use it the same way. But Americans will drive around with 3,500 watt motors and a 12-volt battery. So in Canada, you got to carry like 8 batteries to get enough voltage to power a electric bicycle up a hill, basically. The day after the terrorist attacks, and of course that was a staged event, is known as the false flag 911, right? Hang on, I know. Meet Patrick Clausen. Patrick Clausen is about to explain to you how all wars, and this will be applicable to September 11, by the way, how all wars are started. You start it yourself, attack yourself, blame it on the country you want to go to war with, and you get the sympathy of your country.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
It would be best if somebody else started the war, like he just explained how all the other wars were somebody else started the war. That's all I meant, right? Perpetual globalization and peace. An unexpected Great Reset. This is what we're looking at. The Great Reset might indeed be coming. Started with the COVID, right? But perhaps not in the way intended by the World Economic Forum. No, it's 100%. They plot, like 100 years down the road, 200 years down the road. This is how this group does it. They get commissioned books written on their ideas, and then they get other books refined on those books to the details they want. Then you find the policies to match up, and then they implement it. And they practice in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria. Higher prices for petrol, electricity, and food. How Russia's invasion of Ukraine might affect people in many places worldwide, not just Singapore. Colombia residents praise for Ukraine on Ash Wednesday. Tasmanian Parliament stands united in supporting Ukraine. And you better, because if you don't, they'll get rid of you. Byron Brothers to raise funds for Ukrainian AIDS. Famous ball hit, tennis, is it? Yeah, tennis. Arizona landmark shows support for Ukraine. I've never seen nothing like this ever, but patterns is what we look for in nuclear, of course. The fountain inside a man-made lake shoots a stream of water 560 feet into the air for about 15 minutes at the top of each hour from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. The town of Gilbert lit its water tower in the colors of the Ukrainian flag last week as a show of support. If I went out there and picked my nose and called the media up and I said, pick my nose on a street corner while I was looking towards where Russia was and show support, they'd run with that story. That's a great story. We're going to run with that. Do you mind that? I think you got to... The media makes me nauseated sometimes. Clinton native who moved to Ukraine 30 years ago, forced to flee due to Russia. Romanian reveals secret Ukrainian dress message after classy moments. Anything to promote Ukraine. If you're out on the street and you had condoms stamped with Ukraine on it, or Russia on it, get your Russian condoms. You'd probably sell it in 3 minutes. Vladimir Putin is interested in Scotland, a Scottish nationalist. It's so much. Sauk City community members host candlelight vigil to honor Ukraine victims. Not Syria, not Libya, not Palestine, not the victims in Africa. This is an active combat just in front of their windows. Oh. I feel for them. It's terrifying. I'm just saying, I'm not talking about the little people, the victims. I'm talking about the structure, the military-industrial complex, the weapons producers, to purveyors of misery. She can't leave with her boyfriend because he will eventually be conscripted into the Ukrainian army. My sister's afraid of crossing the border herself because there's a lot of human traffickers at the border targeting young women and young children, which years ago I used to cover this a lot. Whenever there's a major earthquake or a disaster, the crazies will go there and kidnap victims because of the chaos, right? Chinese national injured by gunfire while trying to leave Ukraine. Wherever they set up military bases, children are kidnapped within 1,000 miles, and brothels are created within a week or 2 weeks and up and running. I don't know what this was about, I can't remember. AL-made weapons being used in Ukrainian to fight the Ruskies. Many countries, including the US, have responded by sending weapons. You may have heard of the Javelin missiles. Those are anti-tank weapons. Some of the Javelin missiles are manufactured in Tri, down in Pike County. Javelins are shoulder-fired missiles, according to some experts. The missiles are slowing down the Russian resistance. A number of those missiles made in Alabama at Lockheed Martin's facility. McAllister, Oklahoma, McAllister Munition Facility. They employed everybody in the community, basically, around 1,800 employees, and the children, when they grow up, they'll work there too. All they make is dirty bombs, depleted uranium munitions. All kinds of different calibers too, not just for tanks and aircrafts and A-10 Warthogs and blah, 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 but for soldiers, for their rifles. It's humiliating. It is a fire and forget, meaning you don't have to stay keeping crosshairs on a target while a wire pulls out from a tow missile over 3,500 meters. They are very effective, fairly expensive, and are a great anti-tank weapon. We're told NATO countries, including the US, are also sending Stinger missiles. NATO countries are sending Stinger missiles. But I'm willing to go to war themselves. It's the same thing as going to war. And publicly coming out and saying you're doing as we've been covering is inviting Russia to, when he finally loses it, to launch on those places, which a lot of these NATO countries are nuclear capable, or are holding nuclear weapons for other countries. I'm worried that this is the big reset. Philippines approved revival of nuclear power to help replace coal. And they're going to, it's a strange story, but I threw it through anyway. This place was scrapped before it was ever used. It's denigrated terribly now. But the current Philippine president is just a few months away from retiring. He's like, the hell with it. Put nuclear comment leads to rush for iodine in Central Europe. Iodine goes in your thyroid gland, and normally what it does is it makes hormones, natural iodines, right? But man-made emitters will also aggregate like cesium, just any kind of gamma, not just iodines. And then you have radioactive hormones distributed throughout your entire body, because hormones but in particular your pituitary gland has like a little reservoir of hormones up there that it has unique purposes for. They become ionized and radiated, and you end up with all kinds of weird diseases and illnesses that you can't explain. In the past 6 days, Bulgarian, but you got to take it a couple of days before the radiation shows up. And you can't avoid it now because of Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. In the past 6 days, Bulgarian pharmacies have sold as much iodine as they normally sell in a year. And you can use it like stop. It's not thyroid cancers as much as it's mutated hormones, radioactive hormones. They'll never talk about it. They'll always talk about thyroid cancer, which is latent and could take a long time to manifest and get diagnosed, right? In 2011, Japanese authorities recommended that people around the site of the damaged Fukushima nuclear power plant take iodine. That's a load of crock. There's people like, never mind. It's absurd. It's a blatant lie anyway. The head of the Czech State Office for Nuclear Safety wrote on Twitter, because they're too stupid to do a normal interview. You asked a lot about iodine tablets as radiation protection when, God forbid, nuclear weapons are used. They're basically useless, which is the right answer. Because like all the other, it's still going into your body. If you block your thyroid, it's just going to sequester in your muscles, your organs, and your bones. Still better than going in your thyroid, mind you. But that's not really, because if you're getting pounded with iodine 131 or 132, 133 or 129s, they're very effective at ionizing and radiating your thyroid glands. All of them. But 132, 133 are 10 times more effective than 131, and there's 10 times more iodine 132 for every 131 iodine created. There's 30 times more iodine 132, 133 for every iodine 131 is created. There's 31 times more iodine 129 for every iodine 131 is created. And iodine 132, 133 are 9 times, 10 times more effective at ionizing, radiating the thyroid gland, 131, which is really effective at doing it too. But it's going to be saturated with uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, and strontiums. A lot of that's going to burn holes through your lungs, sequester in your bones, like in your pelvis, start mutating your stem cells, and it's hell after that. In Poland, the number of pharmacies selling iodine more than doubled. Internal data on our website shows interest in iodine increased 50 times since last Thursday. Russia's military surrounds Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Now, reports just before we went live was there's a fire somewhere on the site. They're blocking the road to the nuclear power plant. These are, I would imagine, employees of the nuclear power plant. Safety and security of nuclear facilities, nuclear and other radioactive materials. Ukraine must, under no circumstances, be endangered, Rafael Grossi told the Organization Board of Governors. The IAEA's Board of Governors is what he's alluding to. Rafael also reminded the 173 member states of the International Atomic Energy Agencies, including Russia and Ukraine, that in 2009 they unanimously affirmed that any armed attack on threat against a nuclear facility devoted to peace purposes constituted a violation of the principles of the military-industrial complex's charter and the military-industrial complex's international law and the military-industrial complex's statute of the agencies. They're just a big... Now, if they do it, it's okay, of course, but Russia's doing it. Because NATO had basically taken over Ukraine. And it was now or never. Russia went for it. America would have done the same thing. Any kooky, crazy military would have done the same thing. Social media footage verified by CNN. James Lewis brought up a good comment last night about CNN, about them faking being in a bomb shelter. You know what Dana's like? I probably got that here somewhere. Oh, God, and I got everything else, too. Oh, yeah, you do got it. Look at that. I don't know if it'll... Yeah, there it is. Have anybody seen this? I got to play with it for a second. Oh, the volume's on high. Let me start it. So they're in a studio pretending...
Of something. It looks like it might have been an explosion of cloud. I'd say...
That's real bad quality. I got to get a better version of that because that's that's probably 10 years old. What you're looking at is they're actually in a studio and they're pretending they're under attack by Iraq forces, the Ba'ath Party,
missile exhaust going off. The missiles use a rocket, a cordite, some sort of burning. We just heard a little thump just then. But I have to apologize for that. I
just bear with me.
Something felt momentarily dizzy. You're more experienced in military affairs than I am, but it might have been a little.
So what's the
from the rocket exhaust?
Kuwait? So this is before the highway of death, where they killed 300,000 Ba'ath parties outside of Kuwait with depleted uranium munitions with the A-10 Warthogs. It's important.
You're nervous. One thing we have to point out, just so people won't think.
Just jump ahead.
Atlanta. We're about to have a short course in missile identification. This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you.
Graffiti on it? Yeah, show me graffiti.
Larry King show or bust.
So they're feeding by satellite to live television, but this is in between where they make fun.
Let me say hi.
The top 10 things about Saudi Arabia. Maybe we could shorten the list to 5.
Oh God, Geopolitics by Dan Quayle.
Je suis un journaliste américain. Wolf.
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 Yeah, it's terrible quality, but I'll update it and delete that one, put a better one on the computer. So originally he was there faking live on TV. They were under Scud attack and they needed Americans to come and protect them. And this justified the Americans going in and killing 300 people outside of Kuwait. Just, they were criminals, don't get me wrong. But they come in with the A-10 Warthogs against people in BMWs and Ferraris. They faked it to get the Americans into the war in Kuwait. And they never gave the soldiers during Kuwait until the very moment of battle, because in the Vietnam War, the soldiers were fragging and killing officers in order to try to end the war. It was around 10,000 Vietnamese officers were killed by soldiers. Nuclear threat prompts mad dash for iodine, and Ceylon, they're such degenerates, eh? And look what they write there. Rumors are circulating that it helps with radiation poisoning. Like, iodine's been around forever. The conversation about radiation has been around forever. And to put that narrative there is really interesting. Let me finish it out here. Everybody covered. Average price for gas in Hawaii near all-time records. The same everywhere else. 15 new Chernobyls. These survivors fear about Putin's war. 15 new Chernobyls. And I mean, like, if you're having a war around a nuclear power plant, you knock out external power, we're in a lot of trouble immediately. It doesn't make any sense. Greenpeace says Fukushima dismantling, dumping, not credible. And it's not, but neither is Greenpeace. And Greenpeace agrees with them about treated water, but there'll be no end to the treated water. And they got 2 nuclear experts that will cut your throat in a heartbeat there. 11 years on, Fukushima counting on flower exports because flowers are not checked for radiation. When the flowers die and you throw them somewhere, that radiation is liberated into the environment. Many people outside of Japan still associate Fukushima Prefecture with a nuclear disaster 11 years ago. Really? And that's shocking? That's surprising or something? It's basically saying you're not allowed to do it, see? Moves are spreading in affected areas to make a breakthrough with flower exports. Well, food exports are still struggling. I think they're like 20 times pre-Fukushima nuclear meltdown, the exports from the nuclear wasteland itself, that is. Nuclear meltdowns. Got to find the word. You never find the word nuclear meltdowns together. Japan prefecture has seen a gradual rise in cultivation of flowers which are not subject to radiation bans. What a trick into taking flowers, then you're feeding your children the rice, they're eating radiation all day, every day, bioaccumulating it. They get sick and start to die, and it's because of the diet. Here's another major lie today, because the anniversary is just a few days away. Radioactive waste stocked at 830 sites with nowhere to go. So the official story now is only 830 sites. And the numbers, wait till you get a load of this. 830 sites. The city Koriyama has 582 sites with about 6,000 one-ton bags. 6,000. Followed by Fukushima with 2,000 one-ton bags at 200 locations. So they're basically saying a couple of bags at each location. They just rewrote history. They're hard cases, eh? Well, first off, that picture that they provide you with, there's a lot of bags going to be at that site. Hang on, I'll show you hard cases. It's a crazy industry. They're savages.
There's about 60 million tons.
Let me do that again.
There's about 60 million tons of contaminated soil.
Like, go down and mark on each one of those bags. There's only 2,000 bags in Fukushima. Or mark on it, Dana's wrong, each one of those bags. By the way, in 2016, they had 9 million bags and 114,700 interim storage sites. Now they only got a little over 800. Magic. Fukushima farmers set to restart export to Taiwan. So in 2011, you can see the tonnage was around 10 tons, 12 tons. In 2021, it was over 300 tons exported from the nuclear wasteland, from an actual nuclear wasteland worldwide, to poison you and your loved ones. And this is a recent 2021 story. 12,900 sites near Fukushima did not see radiation doses fall below pre-decontamination levels. So almost 13,000 rather sites. The problem was there's 561,000 sites of radiation where they cleaned up, which meant there's tens to thousands of bags each site. 561,000 sites. Japan brews space sake from yeast sent into orbit. So then the yeast came back down to Earth. They took it to the nuclear wasteland and took the food they're growing there, which is crimes against humanity, by the way, and then used the yeast to make sake from the rice that nobody wants. And then Fukushima Prefecture government, the government of Fukushima Prefecture, the breadbasket of the Asian country, one of the biggest prefectures in Japan, opened a sake shop in New York City that only sold Fukushima sake from a nuclear wasteland. Because your government loves you so much. Restarted Japan's Tokai 2 deferred again. Nuclear power plant. Canada raised the tariffs on Russia's imports. So that 35%. 35% taxes. And we're going to send rocket launchers to Ukraine, so go ahead and nuke Canada. Actual boat, that was a journalist, this creature in the front. And that creature back there is a Manchurian candidate. His father used to work for one of the biggest companies in France. Same as Jean Chrétien and many other prime ministers and many other premiers across the country worked for the same corporation before they became prime ministers or premiers. Canada will remove Russia and Belarus's most favorite national status as a trading partner. And the only one that doesn't have that favor, by the way, is North Korea. So Canada's brainstorming all day. How can we sanction Russia? Let's put 35% taxes on everything to ship to the country. French volunteers rallied to Zelensky's call to join war in Ukraine. French. Foreign legions, no doubt. Can you pull a trigger? Yeah, you're good to go, Junior. Ukraine's request to cut off Russia from the global internet has been rejected. You wrap your mind, like the president, prime minister, or president of the country asked ICANN to get Ukraine off the internet. See, Ukraine, I've never seen a country act like that before. What he's doing. We covered it now over last week, and which is just a fraction of what's really going on. China buys up U.S. corn, soybeans as Ukraine war, which is pretty smart, really. Canada calls for Russia Interpol membership to be suspended. It's absurd. The whole story is absurd, isn't it? from the International Criminal Police Organization. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcement comes amid a flurry of sanctions Trudeau and his puppets have placed on Russia. Russia citizens protest Ukraine invasion despite mass arrests. Not everybody in Russia agrees with it, but they're all demons. If you're Russian, you're officially a demon at this stage. Supermarkets remove Russian vodka brand from sale. It's called collective punishment on top of that. And it's a crude thing to do. You're punishing everybody, which is against the Geneva Convention. Welcome to Strands Co-op. 2 UK supermarket chains have removed a Russian vodka brand. Nobel laureates show support for Ukraine. 163 Nobel Prize laureates who still haven't acknowledged Fukushima happened. The price of everyday items is likely to rise because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, particularly gas and oil, diesel. Boeing to strictly adhere to restrictions on operating in Russia, CEO. Yeah, but they're the weapons manufacturing. They can do whatever they want, really. But they're also going to provide $2 million emergency assistance package to support humanitarian response efforts. The Council of Europe suspends Russia for its attacks on Ukraine. This War Mind Studio donated $520,000. Pokemon, Supercell, and the rest of them are going to donate or pull their games. Lawmakers wants to host a state session to pass aid to Ukraine. Finns warn to NATO an alarmed reaction to Russian invasions. Finland now didn't want to join NATO, and now all of a sudden they do. Never waste a crisis. Tens of millions at risk in Ukraine, the United Nations says. Which is the devil in the United Nations. Russia agrees to let civilians evacuate. France warns the worst is yet to come after a phone call with the new Hitler. Aid shipments to Ukraine have this Toronto delivery company slammed in the best possible way. They got 5,000 employees, and they got all these donations. They offer free delivery of humanitarian aids, and they've been overwhelmed. They need another warehouse. Concerned people in Canada were looking for ways to deliver necessities as well as medical and light military supplies. Well, just a single bullet is light. Just a hand grenade or a Stinger rocket, they're pretty light, I heard. It's a very strange thing to have in with a humanitarian package is, military supplies. BBC revives shortwave radio dispatches in Ukraine. And Wall Street ends lower as the war in Ukraine stirs uncertainty. Russia advances toward Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant. And now apparently they have a fire there. International Atomic Energy Agency, for the first time in its entire legacy, got off its butt and said something. Like, no. They're such a joke, eh? Mining companies may pause growth. Very strange. It might make sense in a few weeks, though. Even children. Put out a video, it went viral because it's pro-Ukraine. India must take a stand on Russia war in Ukraine. And then they got pictures of people with signs, bless their hearts. March the 2nd, 141 countries in the United Nations General Assembly, the AK Military Industrial Complex, voted to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. India was one of 35 countries to abstain, just days after it declined to vote on a similar resolution in the UN Security Council. Ukraine-Russia war, New York politicians hold gun drive as Russia's citizens take up arms. Russia's citizens take up arms. Or Ukraine's citizens take up arms against the Ruskies. How satellites as small as a shoebox are given the public eyes and ears of conflict. So that's a shoebox satellite taking pictures like that. Well, there's no such thing as freedom anymore, I guess. Rallying Jim Thorpe for peace in Ukraine. I've never seen nothing like it. And finally, IKEA Foundation delivers millions in immediate aid as refugees pour out of Ukraine. IKEA Foundation. I'm going to play a few clips from today. We're out in the woods today. A little chaos. There's a little tiny bit of drone. There's no audio for the drone, so I might talk over it. So, it's the 3rd of March. We're going to put the drone up in the air. We got the batteries are in with cups of tea, which are really nice and warm in there. And so that battery is still nice and warm. But it's not freezing temperatures today. That's for tonight and the rest of the week. I'll put that in, shut the video off, and get it up in the air right away while it's still nice and hot. And we're going to have that track me for a little while. Oh, I forgot to hit the magic button. Hang on. We'll get it right. I'll make it right. Go back a few seconds. That track me for a little while. And this is actually 120 frames a second. I accidentally had the drone on 120 frames a second. Looks pretty cool though. And this I'm going to clear a spot for the drone to land. 120 frames a second. Can't believe I've done that. Because my system won't handle 4K. I forgot about the 120, because I do shoot 4K. And this might give us one of these is going to give us a view of the area. This might not be it. I got no idea. Yeah, that's a view of where I'm to. So you can see I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I take you down to that pond to your left on a few occasions over the last week, right? With the videos. So you can see this is where I'm going to put trail cam to, is around right there. This was a cloudy day, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't realize the camera was doing 120 frames a second. And so I sped it up on my end, but it was shot originally. This is double. Alrighty. So we shot some video and cleaned out a little spot for it to land in the snow. We have contact. That's the good thing about 120. You can see all the snowflakes rising up. And I had left a filter on accidentally. I let that run accidentally. There we go. We'll jump to the next clip here. I swear I chopped that part out. And these are my tracks, but I'm looking for a spot where I'm not going to leave an obvious trail of where I put the camera. It never occurred to me that leaving my footprints is going to be a problem. If people drive by, see your footprint, and that gets their attention, then they spot the camera, right? Thursday, we're going to look for a spot to put our incredible cameras. You see what I mean, right? The bar goes right through both of that. Makes it harder to break off. I tried them out this morning, they work. Clean the lens before I stick it out there. The big thing we're worried about is leaving tracks into the woods, because people will actually check it out. We got tracks in the snow here.
We'll have pictures of that in a few days.
We should have a video of it, because the cameras are going to be set to video 1080. So high quality, 1 minute captures. So I came back home to get the shears and saw. I'm looking for the hatchet, but I'm going to take off because it's getting late. And I'm going to head back in. Those lights really work, eh? Beautiful bright in here. So hard to find a spot to put the camera. We have to go make a spot because all the trees are just nothing but bushes. Just come down and fueled up. Come down and fueled up.
You can drive on the streets around for.
There's buck 83. Buck 83 for the good stuff. These tracks, this is just a little side path. And I got the camera up at the head of this trail where there's a three-way intersection. So it shoots the three-way intersection. So if he comes back up this path here, or down it, I'm going to get him. Got one trail camp. At the head of this trail right here. Another divide. And we're going to tally-ho our way up here now. Let's see if we can find a spot for the second camera. We're going to get snow tonight, snow tomorrow. Might not get back in here for a couple of days. The big problem is the skidoos, mate. And so that's what we're worried about.
Well, that's buyer's anxiety. Because you go out and spend over $600 on these cameras. And your brain doesn't want to leave it in the woods, despite the fact that it's got bicycle locks and chains and everything, and it's hid away and blah, blah, blah. You still, your brain's like, geez, that's a lot of money just to leave out in the woods. I'll get over it. And so we raised 2 donations, thank goodness. Stephen Young, which I was talking to today, by the way, and he got so sick, and he's starting to come around, and he's starting to feel almost human again. He's got a long way to go. Donated 50, and Colette S. donated 200. And again, folks, thank you so much. And we're desperate to find the species, and going out and buying the cameras is desperation, really. And the cameras, you can just leave them out there is the idea, and
if there's any animals cutting through, you should capture them. And so you can't go cheap out on that stuff because that defeats the purpose, right? But it turns out it's a lot more expensive because you got to buy batteries and memory cards, and you got to buy locks and all kinds of nightmare stuff to make it work that I didn't take in consideration per se, but I did. Yeah, for the first time there's a nuclear power plant on fire from a war. It's just the most bizarre day imaginable. It's just the most bizarre day imaginable. Each day with this whole concoction going on. And I think that's the idea. And all the media has been directed to look for trivial stories and pump them everywhere too. And that's something we've never seen or even heard tell of before, except when it comes to Trump, right? This was the same tactic used against Trump, who, if he didn't, neither one is a winner, right? It was Trump or Hillary. Neither one's a winner. But, Hillary would have tried to flatten Iran if she had become elected. And she had no right to run, really. So it took a lot of stress off me. We raised at least $250. That's a huge deal. I can go out and buy the rest of the shit I need tomorrow. And that takes huge stress off my shoulders because it's very difficult to keep moving forward with this operation. And the big thing is you got to do these shows 5 days a week and have at least a real narrative somewhere on the planet. I wish I could find someone like me that were just honest, no lies, just tell the truth. We'll see everybody, unless there's breaking news, and there probably will be. I won't be back until Sunday. We're going to get snow tonight, snow tomorrow, and snow the next day. And depends if we get what they're claiming. I won't be able to get back into the cameras until next week sometime. But it'll be what it's going to be, right? I'm totally, unbelievably happy and grateful that we got them out in the woods. Because we don't even know what we're looking at, right? We see some prints, but we can't confirm what it is. It kind of defeats what we're doing in one sense. It's been a super long day, incredibly difficult day. The whole week has been a mad week. Last week and the week before, I suppose, in the year. The Energy Department activated the nuclear incident team, says William Travel. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's so I might be doing a show, not necessarily, it won't be a full show, but to come out and do like a 30-minute report could very well happen each day if the news is breaking. We want to come out and have at least one narrative that's lucid, because the rest of them are not. I'll read everybody's comments after. Hugs for everybody. God bless everybody. Thank you again, Colette and Stephen. I can actually relax now for the weekend. I know I can't, right? The news is not good, right? We covered, what we showed tonight was that, let's play that clip one more time though, hang on. I started freaking around with the clip just before we went live, about an hour before we went live. Let's play that one more time. Not bad for an old feller like me, is it? Hugs for everybody. God bless everybody. Have a great night, great week, and we'll see everybody hopefully Sunday, but if not, we'll see you soon. Have a great night, and thank you, everybody. God bless.
Götter von Pentoch